Welcome back to my channel, YouTube. Listen, we're gonna hop right in. If you're new here, my name is Brandon. I'm an executive chef here in Silicon Valley, and I create content, okay? So make sure you check them all out. Check out all the socials. But look, if you clicked on this video, you are here to learn. If you haven't seen the previous videos, come on, go check them out. Trust me, add this value to your life. Today, we are going to learn about meat, poultry, and game meat identification. I'm gonna keep this super basic and simple. I'm gonna read straight from the book. I am your professor for today. I have to admit, I think it's really important when you are getting into the culinary field, or if you just wanna be a better home cook, you need to know what types of meat are out there and the way the animal looks and just identifying product in the grocery store. It's very important. It literally is. You need to know the difference between a pork chop and a veal chop, or a piece of beef and a piece of turkey, right? It's very important. So without further ado, let's hop right in, but before we do, I want to just say, and I know I say this every video, so it's probably gonna be annoying to you guys, but the book I am using, The Professional Chef, the 9th edition. Now, you may ask, you're a chef, why do you need to read from the book? Because we have a non-negotiable piece of content, okay? Very important. Yes, I know how to identify all the meat and all of the XYZ, but if I'm just telling you that, then you have to go off my word alone. And that's not really good when it comes to educating and teaching, right? Should you buy the book? Yes, just go buy it. It's $100, it's worth it, right? If you don't wanna buy it, you can download the PDF down in the description box, okay? So we are going to talk about meat and poultry identification. First up is gonna be the meat basics. So let's get into it. Meats can be purchased in a number of forms at varying degrees of readiness to cook. The chef should consider several factors when deciding what type of meat to buy. Storage capacity, the equipment required to prepare, and also the kitchen staff's ability to fabricate cuts, and the volume of meat required must all be taken in consideration. Once this information is evaluated, the chef can determine whether it is more economical to purchase large pieces, also known as primal cuts, such as whole legs of veal, or prefabricated meats such as veal already cut into top round or pre-cut scallopini. Meat should be checked for wholesomeness and freshness. Cut surfaces should appear moist but not shiny. The meat should have good color, which varies by type as well as cut. The meat should also smell appealing. Packaged meat should arrive with the package intact with no punctures or tears. The tables accompanying the following sections contain key pieces of information about beef, veal, pork, and lamb. CIA adopted this from the Meat Buyer's Guide, so this is also very important. So this is not my personal opinion. This is coming from the textbook. Let's go. Storage. Meats, poultry, and game should be wrapped and stored under refrigeration. When possible, they should be held in a separate unit or at least separate part of the cooler. They should always be placed on trays to prevent them from dripping onto foods or the floor. This also applies to your home refrigerator, okay? Keep your meat to the bottom. Keep chicken away from everything, okay? Especially raw. If you cut a piece, make sure you wrap it up properly and store it properly. Make sure it's stored on a tray. Don't just leave it all willy-nilly in there. The chef should separate different kinds of meats. For example, poultry should not come in contact with beef, and pork products into contact with any other meat. This will prevent cross-contamination. If you don't know about cross-contamination, go watch this video right here. Vacuum packed meats can be stored directly in the package, as long as it has not been punctured or ripped. Once unwrapped, meat should be rewrapped in open, permeable paper such as butcher paper, because airtight containers promote bacterial growth that could result in spoilage or contamination. Variety meats, poultry, and uncured pork products, which have short shelf lives, should be cooked as soon as possible after they are received. Meat stored at the proper temperature and under optimal conditions can be held for several days without noticeable loss of quality. Meat can also be frozen for longer storage. Very important. The refrigerator temp should be 28 to 32 degrees. Frozen should be 0 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 18 to 7 degrees Celsius. I know this is basic, but it's very important that you know this information, and I am teaching you for free. And then at the end, I'm gonna give you my personal opinion. Inspection and grading. Okay, just to make this short and sweet, okay, some states have relinquished the responsibility for inspecting meats to federal inspectors. Those states that still administer their own inspections of meat must at least meet, if not exceed, the accepted federal standards. Now, quality grading, however, is not mandatory. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, has developed specific standards to assign grades to meats and trains graders. The packer may, however, choose not to hire a USDA grader and may forego grading in favor of the use of an in-house brand name instead. The costs involved in grading meats are absorbed by the individual meat packer, not the taxpayer, since this process is voluntary. Depending on the particular animal, the grader will consider overall carcass shape, ratio of fat to lean, ratio of meat to bone, color, and marbling of the lean flesh. The grade placed on the particular carcass is then applied to all the cuts from that animal. In beef, only a small percentage of meats produced is graded prime. Choice and select are more often available. Grades lower than select are generally used for processed meat and are of no practical importance to the restaurant or retail industry. Some meats may also receive yield grades. This grade is of the greatest significance to wholesalers. It is the total weight of the carcass. Butchers refer to this as the cutability. In other words, it is measured by the yield of edible meat from each pound of the carcass. Okay, so without further ado, I just want to go over the beef cuts. What's really important is I'm going to put a PDF right here, and we are going to single out each one of these cuts, and we're going to keep it short and sweet. It's important you know the different types of cuts, right? I can't tell you how many times I've been training people and they don't know the difference between a New York and a ribeye. So we're going to go over that real quick, and it'll be fast and efficient. Beef is essential to the food service industry, especially in the United States. A significant source of protein, beef is featured in an array of classic and contemporary dishes. This expensive product demands special care and training. Utilizing as much of each cut to maximize the yield is an important practice to follow. Cattle used for the beef industry are typically steers, which are castrated males, over 1 year old, and the heifers, female, are not required for breeding. The older the bovine, the tougher the meat. Specialty beef such as Kobe beef from Japan, Limousin beef from France, and certified Angus, natural, organic, and dry-aged beef from the United States are also available. The 8 grades of beef in order highest to lowest are as follows: prime, choice, select, standard, commercial, utility, cutter, and canner. Prime is usually reserved for restaurants and butcher shops. If you go to a steakhouse or a restaurant that is serving prime beef, this is the creme de la creme. Top 3% of beef in the United States is prime, okay? So just keep that in mind. There's nothing wrong with having a choice piece at the house, right? Or, a good example is like, I will argue and say that a choice filet compared to a prime filet, hairline of difference. We've done plenty of tests. The difference between choice and prime is really slim, okay, for filet. Now, we're gonna talk about the cuts from the primal. These cuts are from the primal cut known as the round. 1, hind shank. 2, shank stew. 3, top round. 4, top round tied as a roast. 5, marrow bones. These cuts are from the primal cut known as the loin, okay? Number 1, you have the short loin. 2, porterhouse steak cut from the short loin. 3, top sirloin butt. 4, flank steak. 5, tenderloin. 6, trim tenderloin. 7, tenderloin steaks. 8, boneless strip. 9, portion cut loin steaks. Now these cuts are known from the primal cut known as the rib. You have number 1, the short loin. Number 2, portion cut short ribs. Number 3, rib eye lip on. Number 4, portion cut rib steaks. Okay, these cuts are from the primal known as the chuck. Number 1, trim shoulder clod. Number 2, top blade. Number 3, shoulder stew. Number 4, chuck roll. 5, brisket. 6, skirt steak. 7, trim skirt steak. 8, tripe, and 9 is oxtail. Okay, so next we're gonna get into pork because I feel like pork is a little bit more important than veal and lamb, considering those aren't as common. So let's jump right into pork. Now we're gonna be on chapter 6, 85. Pork, the meat of domesticated pigs, is among the most popular meat sold in the United States. Typically high in fat, pigs have specifically bred over many generations to produce leaner cuts of meat. Pigs are commonly slaughtered under 1 year of age to ensure a tender product. Although quality grades are less frequently assigned to pork when applied, the USDA grades in order to highest to lowest. There are 1, 2, 3, and 4, and utility. These cuts are from the rear half of the swine. Number 1, ham prepared by smoking. 2, fresh ham. 3, ham prepared by curing. Prosciutto. 4, center cut pork loin. 5, Frenched rib, end of loin. 6, baby back ribs. 7, boneless tied loin roast. 8, tenderloin. 9, center cut pork chop from the loin. 10, center cut pork chop from the rib end. These cuts are from the front half of the swine. Number 1, Boston butt, which is also known as a shoulder. 2, pork picnic. 3, spare ribs. 4, foot. The following examples are prepared pork items. 5, Genoa salami. 6, sliced bacon. 7, kielbasa. 8, chorizo. 9, pancetta. 10, Italian sausage. And 11 is breakfast sausage. Okay, so when it comes to game meats, I'm just gonna go over one that I think is important to know, and that's venison, so also known as deer. So we're gonna get into that right along with the primal cuts, but listen, if you wanna know any more information from the book about game meats, let me know. I'll be more than happy to go over it with you. But the thing is I think venison is very important. I've used venison quite frequently in restaurants that I've worked in, so let's jump right in. We're on page 94, chapter 6. Venison and furred game. Free-roaming and domesticated wild animals fall under the category of game. A variety of game meats have become increasingly popular due in part to customer awareness of lower fat and cholesterol content. Depending on the area of the country, several types of furred game are available. Game meats are categorized into two segments, large and small. Venison is the most popular large game, characterized by lean meat and free from intramuscular fat, generally dark red in color and suitable for roasting, sauteing, grilling, and smoking. Though venison commonly refers to deer, other members of the venison family include moose, elk, and reindeer. Buffalo and wild boar are other popular large game. The most common of small game is rabbit. The rabbit is mild, lean, tender, and fine textured in meat. A mature rabbit ranges from 3 to 5 pounds, and a young rabbit is generally 2 or 3 pounds. The loin is often sauteed or roasted, while legs are commonly braised or stewed. Commercial game meats are federally inspected. The quality of the flesh is a direct result of age, diet, and the time of year it was killed. Okay, so let's talk about the different sections. We're still on page 94. These cuts are from a variety of game animals. So number 1, venison leg haunch. 2, boneless venison loin. 3, venison medallions. 4, venison saddle. 5, French venison rack. 6, venison shoulder. 7, boneless venison shoulder. And 8 is the whole rabbit. Now, I will be honest, venison and lamb or mutton or goat are very, very similar. Not the same exact, but they're very similar. So once you kind of know one animal, it's really easy to kind of navigate through the rest of them, right? Now that we're done with the red meat part of it, I want to touch on poultry real quick. I think this is really important. This is really good information. So, if you clicked on this video and you're not subscribed yet, I'm telling you, hit that subscribe button because you're going to hear my summary towards the end. Without further ado, let's get right into the poultry and then I'll summarize towards the end. Poultry. The word poultry refers to any domesticated bird used for human consumption. Once reserved for special occasions, chicken and other poultry have become a commonplace in restaurants and homes. The subtle and familiar flavor of chicken lends itself well to a number of different cooking methods. Considered very nutritious, poultry entrees are among the most popular on most menus. Similar to other meats, poultry must undergo a mandatory inspection for wholesomeness. The grades of USDA A, B, or C depend on the numerous factors, such as carcass shape and the ratio of meat to bone. Once inspected, the birds are plucked, cleaned, chilled, and packaged. They may be purchased whole or in parts. Poultry is classified by age. The younger the bird, the more tender the flesh. So listen, I gotta be honest, anytime I go out to a restaurant, I barely order chicken. I eat chicken probably 6-7 times a week, pretty much every day. But when I go out to a restaurant, I'm not ordering chicken, which is the complete opposite. A lot of people, when they go to a restaurant, they want to order chicken because it's safer for them. They feel like it's safer, but that's just my little opinion. Now let's get into the bird identification. So I'm on page 95. These birds are an example of geese and ducks. Number 1, the Buddhist duck, called Peking duck if the head is removed. Number 2, the mallard duck breast. Number 3, the goose. Number 4, mallard duck legs. And number 5, the ultra controversial foie gras. Okay, and now my personal opinion, when it comes to duck and geese, these cook very similar, but you have to be careful, okay? Depending on if it's domesticated or if it's wild, because I'll be honest, I've gotten duck where it's nice, juicy, and delicious, but you go to cook the breast and it's super lean and dry and it's just awful. In my experience, I'm gonna say that wild duck compared to domesticated duck, the flavor is better, but the texture is, you have to know how to cook it properly because these birds don't eat like they do, when they're domesticated, right? When they're farmed. And the thing is like being a chef, I've dealt with so many different types of protein. My ultimate advice is to, once you get the bird, look at the flesh. If it looks really lean, then you want to cook it at a lower temperature. If it is super fatty, then you have a little wiggle room of oven roasting or charring or grilling, but just use your best judgment. I've noticed for me, the best way to cook game birds is in a controlled environment, and that's gonna be sous vide for me. I've never had an issue with cooking a game bird sous vide. I've, stuffed quail, I've cooked geese. My favorite way to cook duck is Peking style duck. I love it. It's absolutely amazing. Going to foie gras, I love foie gras, but it's ultra controversial. But the way to cook foie gras is, I like 3 textures, okay? So if you have a piece of foie gras, I like 90 to 105 grams portions, and make sure it's thick enough so when you sear it, hard sear on both sides. And then throughout the foie gras, you want 3 textures. On the outside, crispy, the next layer is creamy, and then you want completely raw in the center, almost like butter. And when you go to eat this, it's amazing. You get this ultimate crispy edge, creamy center. It's absolutely to die for. That is my pro tip on poultry and game birds. And now we're gonna get into the next step, right? Because it can get confusing. Cornish hen, quail, baby bird, Poussin. It's so confusing. I'm gonna iron that out for you right now. Poultry continued. So these birds are examples of the chicken family. Number 1, 6-pound roaster chicken. Number 2, turkey. Number 3, stewing hen. Number 4, 3-pound fryer chicken. Number 5, pheasant. 6, bone-in quail. 7, squab. 8, guinea fowl, and 9, semi-boneless quail. This is really good. I'm gonna be honest, I think the difference between the roasting chickens, listen, do whatever you want with it. It's chicken, right? It's fine. Where you need to train yourself and just use a lot of your best judgment, if you haven't had a quail cooked properly, or a pheasant cooked properly, or squab for that matter, cooked properly, I highly recommend to follow a professional chef's recipe that is online. I know that this is controversial, but for any of the red birds, meaning quail, pheasant, squab, duck, I like to eat these mid-rare. It's not like chicken. And trust me, you don't want to eat it well done. Now, obviously it's your preference, and if I was cooking for you, I would cook it however you want, but I highly recommend definitely eating your duck medium to mid-rare. Rosé is what I call it. Quail you can kind of get away with, but I like to eat quail mid-rare as well. Pheasant is the one that the flesh is a little bit lighter in color than red, but I also eat pheasant, medium, mid-rare, but I know it can be really uncomfortable if you're new into the culinary world and you see bird and you automatically think, well done. Totally get it. For me, the squab and the quail, it's very difficult to use the legs in a high volume environment. Although they are delicious, we mostly use the breast, right? For the quail, you can use the legs. The squab and the pheasant, it's kind of difficult to use the legs. They're not like a chicken leg. Actually, all 3 of these birds, the quail, the pheasant, the squab, the legs, you don't get that much yield. I have a beautiful brine for these birds that is absolutely to die for, really delicious. Maybe I'll leave it down below. I don't know, it's a secret, it's a top secret brine. If you're gonna ask me the difference between a broiler and a fryer chicken, the difference between a broiler chicken and a fryer chicken is age, right? So the broiler is 4 to 6 weeks old and the fryer chicken is 6 to 10 weeks old. Now, the roaster chicken is 3 to 5 months old, all right? The one thing we didn't talk about in here is the capone. It's a good bird, but honestly, people don't understand it. I've used it plenty of times. And basically what a capone is, it's a castrated male that is under 8 months. I don't think we need to talk about turkey because people only eat it for Thanksgiving. But if you do want me to go into turkey, feel free, leave it in the comments below. I'll make a video, totally get it. But if not, we're gonna go ahead and move right on. What's really important is knowing the different areas of the chicken. And I have a video on my YouTube of breaking down a chicken from start to finish. I'll leave it linked right here, but let's talk about it. I'm on 98. I'll put a diagram so you guys can see, but let's talk about where the neck is, the wingtip, wing, first joint, backbone, and the scapula, pelvic bone, thigh, drumstick, foot, breastbone or the keel, and the wishbone. And listen, once you learn how to break down a chicken, all the other birds are the exact same, pretty much, except for the duck. The duck has a longer rib cage and it's a little bit more finicky to get around the shoulder, but it's pretty much the same thing. So practice on a chicken, but as long as you know what every part is, then you're all good. That is gonna do it for this section. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to elaborate. We can even bring this conversation onto social media. I don't mind at all, but I think what's really important for me is having this base that I could refer back to when I'm making these advanced chef videos. So thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.